Big standby. So.
Always something.
We got this.
Wrong spot. Here we go. So everybody enjoy this extra couple of minutes of pre-show fun. All right, here we go. And welcome to Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael. And tonight we have a guest joining us. She's got changed her internet provider, so we all know how much fun that is. So as soon as she's available, we'll be bringing her in. And all of my guests that are in right now, if you're fans of the show, you've recognized them, and so I'm kind of toying with, do I do the cool introduction or do we just get started? And I'm like, yeah, let's do the cool introduction, because why not? You guys deserve it. So tonight's episode is a special treat because LaLa is joining me as guest host tonight. So we'll be excited to see that. And Rogue Dragon is joining us again to share her experiences. And Alyssa will be joining us as soon as she gets her connection worked out. So hopefully she'll be introduced when she comes in. But with that being said, I am going to allow now the cool crew to introduce themselves. So I'll hand it off to LaLa.
Hello. What? Can we cuss or no? I forgot how you go. No, right? Because you're on the radio.
No, we're not. Well, we will be on the radio, but we're not on the radio right now.
Okay, I'll try to be good. Anyway, hi, I'm LaLa.
If it comes out, it comes out. I'm not too particular.
I am a psychic medium and an experiencer. I've had experiences my whole life, like starting from 5. I remember spirits talking to me and UFOs and stuff. A couple years ago, I lost my parents and my boyfriend and my friend, so I decided to stop hiding from my psychic abilities so I could help others heal. Since I knew how horrible it felt, I wanted to help people. And so this is how this all became. This is all new. I've only been talking online for like 2 years to people, so it's nice.
All right, and before I turn it over to Rogue, I am going to take and acknowledge the fact that Alyssa has joined us. And all you've missed was LaLa's introduction, so
Yeah,
we haven't really started for you, Alyssa. We held as much as we could.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sorry. We had to change internet providers this week, so it's kind of inputting the new password and network name into my computer.
Yeah, it's always fun when you got to change those. But so what we're doing right now, Alyssa, is we're just, for everyone that's watching the show, doing a quick little introduction, and then we'll get started. So, Rogue, Alyssa, who wants to go next?
Go ahead.
All right.
Let me
I apologize.
settle.
I've got a little chest cold, so I might be muting myself back and forth, so I'm not hacking a lung out. But I've been very connected to the other side, I guess I could say. Psychic, a lot of energy, psionics. I can remove and deactivate different technologies that have been implanted by either ETs or the different MyLab programs. I also do the balancing of the energy bodies. A little bit of a homestead type scientist. I could talk about stuff in a little bit, but I've got some Tesla tech here and some exciting stuff that I'm working on with Susan and Bill, Bill Tessing, and then of course Susan Long. I'm making basically a proto med bed, and we're all going to be having one in our different locations that we're going to be working to help with healing energies. So I'll explain that. But Montauk Kid, my lab experiencer, alien abductee, I'm psychic, like I said. I have done mediumship type things. I try not to do a lot of channeling because I know a lot of V2K comes through. So I don't like listening to the CIA. So I usually try to stick with just the basics. I do a lot of session work as a mentor or coach. I use the Hoffman process, NLP, and then of course I remote view and use bilocational energies and everything. So yeah, just kind of a little brief.
Wow, that's amazing.
And for those of you who are noticing, Rogue was actually on Nate's program and was kind enough to cut that one short to come join us here, which I appreciate. She didn't have to do that, but I so appreciate her and Nate's understanding. And Nate will be a guest next month, so stay tuned for that one. And then we come to the new, awesome, totally cool, ready to make her first appearance, Alyssa.
Hello, thank you for that. I consider myself a little bit different, but also the same. As many people know, I entered this community sort of through my older brother, Anthony. And he's more well known in the SSP circle. So it took me a little while to define myself, I suppose. I have a lot of experiences that reflect SSP, but I would more accurately describe myself at this point in my life as an MK Ultra survivor and a targeted individual. I'm a body worker. I've been a massage therapist for 10 years. And so I see myself sort of bridging the gap in communication between the disclosure community and the common man, the general public, because I've had to try to figure out how to explain what it feels like to awaken amongst people that are more established. And, they already feel more settled in their memories and stuff like that. But I didn't want to jump the gun. I think that the transition period is very important to describe. And in a way, I felt like I was sort of thrust into the community earlier than I was ready for, because I have an older sibling, which is not very common in this community. But I've done the best that I can with that. And here I am.
Very cool.
And just want to check my volume. Is my volume okay?
Yeah.
Yes, I actually turned you up a little bit because you were a little soft. So
Okay.
And there's one thing I want to ask you about, Alyssa, that kind of piqued my interest with what you sent me. Actually, a couple things. What is an aquatic body worker?
Oh yeah, there are several modalities of aquatic bodywork that have existed for thousands of years, and if you want to count other planets and galaxies, probably for millennia since the dawn of time. But essentially, aquatic bodywork is just massage therapy in the water. So you're using the therapeutic properties of water, like buoyancy, hydrostatic pressure, drag, force. You're using that to manipulate the muscles and the joints in various ways, depending on what the goal is or the condition of the client. And it's really beautiful. I'm a certified Watsu practitioner. I also studied aqua stretch. And so essentially I've just taken my bodywork practice into the water because that is where I feel most at home. That's my element for sure.
Okay, and I love how you just jumped right into the second question of Watsu practitioner. I've never heard of Watsu.
Yeah,
So
it's
that,
water shiatsu. So you've probably heard of
oh,
shiatsu massage, right? Pressure
right.
points, meridian work. Yeah.
So is there like a extra benefit where the body relaxes more in the water, or what? What would be the draw to doing it in the water versus table?
There are applications for both, certainly, but the water calls back to the womb space. So this is where I feel that I'm trying to communicate something between traditional body work and spiritual work. Because when you're in the aquatic environment, you open up the timeline all the way back to your conception. Because that's the environment that you were conceived, right?
Right.
So
Or some
I
of
think
us
that there's a
were.
significance there. Well, yeah,
No,
there are many benefits to being in the water, and the flow, the ebb and flow, and the movement through the water definitely elicits a parasympathetic response. So that's like the rest and digest nervous system. So there's something very relaxing. I mean, if you've been in the ocean and you're just floating there and kind of riding the waves, and you feel how your body starts to calm down, that's the idea. And it has to do with the cerebrospinal fluid rhythm.
Wow.
wow.
I wish you lived closer to me, man, because I would totally do it.
Where do you
I
live?
know, right?
Maryland. Yeah.
That would be really cool. I can understand what you're talking about with the water because I've done a float tank before, and when they shut off all the lights and you're just in there in the dark, just floating, it's just it was weird at first, but oh god, it was amazing after a while. Just listening to the music and just being totally like no senses at all, like physically, it's like you're just there. It's amazing.
Yeah,
So yeah, that would be such a cool experience with what you do.
that's a really good analogy too, because it is essentially the float tank idea. You're trying to find neutral buoyancy and a temperature, a water temperature that is very similar to your surface body temperature. So you sort of lose space. You lose touch with the space around you versus the boundaries of your body. And it's bringing you back to that like 0 point.
Yeah. So there was a moment where everybody was kind of talking over each other because I think there was some freezing going on or lagging. But Alyssa, LaLa is in Baltimore. I don't know if you got that.
I didn't, but thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to look it up. This is very interesting. I really had no clue.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's part of what it's about, is because, I'm one practitioner, but there are people all over the world. And so I want people to know that this is something that exists.
No, I know, and that's why I'm so glad you came on. Is I wanted to help get the word out as well and promote this. And one last question before we go off, or may change topics or wherever conversation's going. But I'm curious, Alyssa, with some people gravitating like water signs gravitate to water to healing. Do you notice in your work that do people, like that you know of that are water signs, do they take to it faster and easier, or you notice no, it just everybody just naturally just goes?
That's a really good question. That would be an interesting thing to note and to take a study of over time. I would say water signs generally just they jump into the pool or the ocean and they're like, "Woo, I'm home." So yeah, I can say that, but also there's something to be said for being the complete opposite. Like if you're a very fire dominant person, you might need to fucking chill out. So sometimes those people really like it too because it's the complete opposite of where their mind typically rests.
Mhm.
So it's totally dependent on the person and what they're ready for and what they're looking for. Yeah, but that's a really cool question. And I think, moving forward, I would like to take note of the astrological charts in my documentation.
It'd be interesting if you were to follow the, I know a lot of people like to follow the tropical astrology. If you're going towards the cerebral spinal fluid, what you want to do is direct sign. And so you want to look at the sidereal aspect. And so it'll show your actual, with which planets were actually on the horizon when you were born.
Yeah.
And so.
And sidereal time is more the transits in relation to the center of the galaxy, right?
I think so. My sister knows better. She's written a book about it. I know that Laura Eisenhower focuses on the sidereal aspect instead. So the tropical is about 20 to 24 degrees off, where the sidereal is actually on the planetary planes, according to our orbit. And so, like, for instance, if I were to do tropical, I'd be considered a Cancer, but I follow the sidereal, and so I'm actually a Gemini. So July 11th is my birthday.
Mine's the 14th.
Oh, that's really cool. So yeah, you would be also a Gemini because it goes to July 15th, and so you would still be a Gemini.
Okay. Yeah.
And
No, Laura
also,
Eisenhower just recently read my birth chart. I went to a women's retreat, Charnel,
Oh, that's so cool.
Wolverton, Seahone. Yeah, that was mind blowing. I mean, that is probably the most comfortable and accurate reading without having someone previously know much about me or who I am or what my life has been like. She was so spot on. So yeah, just to plug Laura Eisenhower again, as I'm sure it's been done many times, but
right.
Just
that's
profound.
One thing I do love about that. The sidereal is so spot on with your houses. As long as you know your birth time, it's so accurate. It's almost scary. It's like, what? Holy cow!
Yeah. It's funny you talk about the birth time because I was talking with someone the other day and they were commenting the birth time that's written on your birth certificate, you had to account for daylight savings. Because that was not in existence when astrology started. So if you were born, say, 2 in the afternoon, you got to say, was that 2 in the afternoon daylight savings? Because then you got to change the time to accommodate daylight savings. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And he's like, no, I'm serious. Daylight
I have to
savings
look at
messed
that now.
with astrology.
I'd have to look at that.
Yeah,
now I'm trying to think
what
is this number. Because I guess I would be, instead of 6:10 p.m., I guess I'd be 5:10 if it's, or no,
It's
7:10.
spring ahead, so if you're in daylight savings, you were born an hour earlier.
Okay, so it would be around 5:10. I'll have to look at that and see like where some of my house positions change. It'd be fascinating.
Yeah, I was like, I really thought they were kidding, and they were like, no, because daylight savings didn't come until the 40s.
That actually makes so much sense. I want to look at mine now, like dial it back an hour and just see what that would look like.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if things start falling into place a lot better.
I know, right? It'll be even more crazy. I wonder if it would change my rising, because right now I would be Ophiuchus or Scorpio rising, but if it's an hour earlier, I'm like, what would that make me? Maybe I'm rising. I don't know. I guess I'll have to see.
I need to get mine done because I have no clue at all.
My sister or Laura, of course, either one. Like, I know that they're extremely reputable. Now I'm gonna have to tell Desiree, dude, do mine an hour earlier. Let's see what we're at. I might need some corrections there.
Yeah, Mario, did you meet Mario?
I'm not sure.
Mario Miares?
Oh, I don't know.
We might have missed.
It might have been.
I think I initially met him at a conference that was later than the one where I met you, but he's another good person. And LaLa, I can send you the WATSU directory, and that lists all of the certified WATSU practitioners all around the world.
Thank you.
And that's just one aquatic bodywork modality, but yeah, as far as aquatic bodywork goes, I can send you that, and then. Yeah, astrology, Laura or Mario are the people that I would suggest. And I don't know Mario's sister, but I trust her, so I'm sure that's a good resource too. And it's good to get multiple readings and compare and contrast.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think who it was that was telling me. It was on one of my shows recently. Oh, it was Dr. Turry who told me that. He was going into the whole astrology and how you had to balance it on the times, and everything was very important, and he's like deeper than Vedic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, I know Vedic is really, it's crazy how accurate it is. But I mean, that technology, it's wow. It just proves to us how our star ancestors understand things, and we just got to really be open and receptive, just because I mean, I know I'm not perfect. I have a lot of my own shit show that I gotta get through, but I'm working on it. Keep going inside.
I know. I love how the universe gives us a couple of days to a week where we're like, oh, I got everything in order, and then it bottoms out, and you're like, back to square one, starting over.
I know Mercury retrograde's coming up again next week. I'm like, no.
I was born in Mercury retrograde, so I function better than most. I'm like, woo! I finally make sense. But everybody else is having a hard time. So I'm like, oh shit, I'm still out of sync.
I have to slow down a little bit and be like, okay, chill, think, and make sure I know what I'm doing before I just jump.
That's what I love about doing these shows. Like, LaLa's over there rolling her eyes that Mercury's coming.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god. And Alyssa's like, yes, finally.
Yeah, I would just like to say too, I'd like to take a moment. I'm gonna sit back and take a deep breath, but I felt so anxious tonight. I don't know if anybody else experienced that. I don't want to call it psychic attack and victimize myself and stuff, but you can definitely, as an intuitive or an empathetic person, you can definitely feel when other people, especially there's a notice hey, this show is happening tonight. And then people are like, oh, Alyssa's coming online tonight, so I'm going to send some shitty energy her way. And I'm just like, oh God, I can definitely feel that. And the older that I get and the more accustomed to this community and what psychic attack even is, I'm like, okay, I feel that, but whatever. But it was pretty intense today. So I was already feeling scattered because I'm like, oh shit, I got to input the information for my new internet network and password, and I was feeling that at the same time. So just very discombobulated all day. I went to see a client earlier this morning. I left the house initially without my swimsuit. I'm like, oh fuck, I need to go back to my house and get my swimsuit. But no, it's okay. I'm just trying to call attention to that, though. There's something in the ethers
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Well,
with
those
all this
fuckers don't want to mess with me because I'm really good at blocking. I also am sitting next to plasma GANs, and then a lot of the
Yeah.
technology I've been working on. It's not totally finished yet, and
Wow.
so, but this is a charging plate that I'm making that's going to be part of the proto med bed. But like that's what I have around me right now is technology and energy and stones, and yeah, people don't want to do psychic attack here because I like to basically direct it back to them about tenfold. And so, yeah, there's not a lot of remote viewers that like to step in because they know that I fight back. I'm kind of a bitch on the astral. I mean, a
Well,
Gemini Scorpio, what you gonna get?
Well, you're lucky. I got a bag of chips and a puppy next to me. I mean, you gotta mail me some of your stuff.
and
No, but I felt it.
honestly,
I felt it too. The anxiety, because I'm anxious anyway. But this was a little bit different. So
Yeah.
I was just more quiet.
I've been
But
a
yeah, I'm
little,
glad you said something.
yeah, I've been feeling it too. And normally, like Rogue and LaLa and I, we were able to chit chat a little bit before going live, and so we let kind of work through some of it. But yeah, Alyssa, you just jumped right in and you were showtime.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is. I was questioning. So I spoke the first time publicly at the Full Disclosure Now conference in July in St. Petersburg, Florida. And that was
You did
amazing.
well.
Thank you. I don't want to say that my presentation sucked, but it kind of did. It didn't suck, but you know, I'll share my Rumble. I just finally started a Rumble, a little late to the game, but to people who want to listen to my presentation, I would invite you to look at it more as me reading the beginning of my book, because I largely referenced my notes. I was really, really nervous, and so I was reading off of my papers, and I started to open up and show my personality more about halfway through, but that's really what it was. I am working on a book, and so that's kind of the context of what that presentation was. I had a list of things that I wanted to make sure that I covered that were relevant to the time and just honoring my own space, not saying too much, but making sure that I said everything that was relevant at the same time. So yeah, you know, it was stiff. It was stiff. You know, I'm reading off of a paper, and some people might say like, oh, this is scripted. Yeah, it is scripted, but it's all 100% authentic. That's my life story. So
Right.
that's
Sometimes you have to have a script in front of you because it's daunting when you have a lot of people in front and you've got that energy and, you know, people are watching you. I think a lot of times we get those armchair critics that need to step back and be like, you know, put yourself in that spot. How would you respond too? So it sounds like you did a great job, and I look forward to hearing it. That's really cool. I'm proud of you, kiddo.
Are you going to be at the next one?
Yeah, Brian has invited me. I fully intend to go. And
well, I got a surprise for you, Alyssa.
What's that?
I'll be making my first appearance on stage there.
Wow.
Awesome.
So I will be in your shoes. This will be my first conference about this.
Very cool.
That's really awesome. Cool. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I have ideas that I'd like to talk to Brian about, so I don't want to divulge too much right now, I guess. But I have ideas for how we can maybe ground and center the energy a little bit better for the next conference that involve physical movement, because that's kind of my space. And you know, maybe we should have some exercise classes at midday or something like that. And yeah,
that would be smart.
I thought you were gonna be like, yeah, let's have one of those. Just start playing like music for a few minutes, and everyone just gets up and just dance for a little bit, get the energy going.
I actually did that Dimensions of Disclosure 2019. Jordan Sather actually did Qigong on the beach. It was amazing. I thought it was great. Yeah.
And there were things like that going on. There was a drum circle. There was a lot of amazing things going on there. But I think, I don't know, maybe there needs to be like a little introvert circle, like the newcomers. Or
Yeah.
if you're shy, come here. Let's help you open up.
Oh,
Like, believe it or not, I'm an introvert myself. So hey.
Oh, just wait till you see me in conference mode. I will be hovering around the closest people I know and being like, I will just go where you're going because, yeah, my shy side is, yeah, I don't just walk out and be like, hey, everybody. I'm like, I'll just hang over here until someone approaches.
me too. I spoke at Lorian Fenton's conference 2 years ago, and it was my first time, and I was terrified. I literally had to sit down. I thought I was going to fall over, and I said, "Oh, my foot hurts. Can I have a chair?" But I was going to just black out. So, but my friend Deb, she said, just look at me and talk. So if you find somebody that you know, just look at them more than the other people. It'll help you. That's all.
Yeah.
You're welcome. So.
No, that does help, actually.
Can I ask a question about
You're co-hosting with me, so ask away.
Okay. I am interested in how you figured out that you were being targeted, or have you been through gang stalking? How did you get your memories back from the you said MK Ultra? Is that what you said?
Me?
Yeah. I'm interested in how you figured it. Like, did you always kind of know, or did it just things were strange and you're like, oh, something's going on, let me look into it, that you were being targeted?
Yeah. I always knew that something was strange.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's where a lot of us start off. You just intuitively understand that there's something different about you, and that primes your mind to look for answers. And in my case, I had an older brother, which is quite unusual in this community. There are not very many siblings coming forth. So that was my first introduction. And to be completely honest with you, that very strongly deterred me at first, because I didn't understand what my brother was talking about. And so I thought that he was crazy. And I kind of went back into my shell. My family is there's a very strong dichotomy in my family. My dad's side of the family is a lot more military, masculine energy. Mom's side is the energy healers, massage therapists, naturopath. But also, mom's side is where more of the mental illness and addiction issues were. So I grew up believing that these things were crazy and women were crazy. Just to be completely honest, like, and I grew up in a very kind of like country, redneck county environment, and so that turned into gender dysphoria for me. Like, I did not like being a woman. I felt very uncomfortable with my body. It took until I was probably 25, 26 years old to start listening to my brother and understanding through my own experiences. I guess I had my first MyLab experience when I was 21, but I discounted it as sleep paralysis. This is just a bad dream. This doesn't mean anything. But what happened was I was living out at my great-grandparents' house, and I had a tall gray standing right over my bed, and another one in the corner of my room. It was picking up something and looking at something that was on my dresser. And I woke up the next morning feeling very compelled to pray. And that is what ultimately led me away from entering the military. Is that was my goal, and my focus was like, I want to be like the men in my family. And the women are crazy heretics or whatever. I'm being harsh right now, but it's to demonstrate a point. Like, that's the way that I was thinking and the way that I was programmed. But after this MyLab experience, I reconsidered, and I felt a very strong message from my higher self to become a massage therapist rather than enter the military. And that was at the age of 21. But I still wasn't fully listening to what my brother had to say about the SSP. That took me several more years of having what people call bleed throughs to listen. You know, one of those bleed throughs was, and this is where time is so fluid, because, you know, I had these experiences previously, but I didn't pay them any mind until later on in my life when I had more context to understand what they meant. But at the age of 17, I was selected for NASA Aerospace Scholars Camp. You know, so I was sent to Seattle.
I was in NASA ROTC. That's interesting that we have that connection.
Exactly. And I feel like that's probably a My Lab hub, right? Like, who knows what the fuck. Because I spent a week in Seattle between the Museum of Flight and Aerojet. You know, there was a bunch of high school kids staying in a hotel, so who knows what the fuck was going on. But there was that, and then right after that, I went to Germany. That's another thing. I felt very drawn to and compelled to study the German language when I was in high school. They only, again, at my like redneck podunk high school, they only had Spanish, and I wasn't interested in that. Spanish is a beautiful language, but I just wasn't interested. So I ended up going to the community college and studied German instead. And I made a friend in high school that was a German foreign exchange student. And so right after NASA Aerospace Scholars Camp, I went to Germany. Wow. And that didn't mean anything to me at the time, but looking back on it, I'm like, that's like MK Ultra poster child. Like,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it sometimes
go to Germany.
It takes a while to understand what's going on. You have to reflect and put it into a context.
Yeah, and Alyssa, you have a fan in the chat room.
What's that?
You have a fan in the chat room.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Azik9 says, keep shining. I'm assuming that's Sister, and they're doing it Star. And it's Zender. He was correcting the last name.
Yeah, I don't know who you are, but thank you.
That was nice.
It's really cool.
There's more things like that. The bleed through. Mine, that's why I frame myself more as MK Ultra targeted individual, because I want to describe what this experience feels like from the bottom up. Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't have psychic abilities and intuition, because I definitely do, but I want the general public to understand this and pay attention to it. So I feel like the most credible way to do that is to explain what can be verified in the third dimension first, before you go off too far into the esoteric concepts.
Right. I agree with that very much.
Yeah.
And I love that, because last August was when I got confirmation of being a part of the SSP. And so I'm still in the process of coming to terms with having one partial memory that I could stake my name on and go, this is mine. I know this for a fact. And sitting there going, I don't know why it's partial. I don't know why I can't get it all, but that's all they're giving me.
It'll come as you keep integrating. It took me, excuse me, several years, just because I've had bleed throughs since I was a kid. But I always thought they were nightmares. Lots of paralysis. I do have memories of being taken by the Greys, being in the ship, and God knows what they were doing. I was 5 years old. Excuse me. But it seems like the bleed throughs got a little more easy to understand. I've had some near-death experiences as well, and interactions with Yeshua. Lots of questions. I'm one of those that's, definitely a Gemini, but there's just, I think, just connecting the dots the past 4 years, and recently just really realizing what happened to me in Kruger. I'm not going to go into details on how they split me in half, but I was basically split in half. And part of me was used in one super soldier, and part of me was used in another super soldier in different programs. In Kruger, excuse me, I have memories in the NASA Solar Warden, what do you call it? NASA, Navy Solar Warden program as a pilot. I also had pilot navigator. Most of the programs I was in was with the medbed and the regen, or the Genesis tanks or Genesis chambers. A lot of us call them that. Like the technology and stuff that I've been working with. I'm going to call it O just because YouTube likes to ban a lot of it, but ORGONITE. Wilhelm Reich did a lot of work with it. But that's like the thing that I was showing you guys before. He talks about how you do have to have selenite, which is this guy, of course. This is the tourmaline. This is shungite. And I just, in my personal one, I put fluorite. This is Susan's, excuse me. And then each of these is a quartz point. I felt like it needed to be double torminated because it's going to be making like a, what do you call it? Kind of a vortex, but what do you call it's like the Schumann resonance type. It makes like an apple shape whenever the energy comes out.
Torrid field?
The torrid field. Thank you. This is a qubit that's been wound into a radionics coil. This is another type of radionics coil. I'm not done pouring, and so I still have to pour the basically the rest of the stuff on this.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So
That's part of it. That's the charging plate. And it'll be on top of Bubble Tech, which Bill Tysing actually invented. With the Bubble Tech, you have to have several different aspects with it. This is the Tesla Tech that I have. It's a violet ray that will be connected. This part is the one that I use on my body, but there's another wand that I'll be wrapping with some wire that I'll be making a Genesis crystal, which is use PEX tubing. And in the PEX tubing, you put a wire through that will be connected to this, so it'll be electrified. Then there's also going to be different stones in the 4 different hoops that's made. It'll be over my massage table, and I'll be having near and far infrared. The far infrared is a pad that'll be on top of the table with different gemstones, and the near infrared is the red light lamps that'll be on the person. And then the Genesis crystal underneath, it's going to be, or excuse me, not the Genesis crystal, but the Bubble Tech. I'm making Ganzonite Bubble Tech because I made some GANs. This is CO2 GANs. And I also have CuO, which is copper GANs. These are kind of heavy. But I keep the saline or the salt water in them because I just feel more connected to the crystalline energy. But with the Bubble Tech, the GANs, plasma GANs, which is tachyon energy. We also have the Tesla Tech, the violet ray energy, the radionics, the magnetics. All of it's going to be basically working together from what I remember working on the med beds. Of course, it's not AI driven, and so it can't change the frequency as much. Like whenever you narrow down with an actual med bed, you would be taking the AI, which would be taking DNA samples of the person that's in the bed, and then it basically tweaks it to whatever you're needing to have healed. You can actually regrow limbs, regrow organs, body parts. You name it, you can take somebody that's been deceased within 4 months of their death, and all you need is a piece of their DNA, and you can regrow their body and reanimate them within 4 months of death. And so this technology we've had for a very long time, at least over 70 years we've been using it. We've been doing cloning, of course, that's part of the programs that I was in. And with the med beds that I'm hoping Trump is going to be bringing out with RFK and the White Hats, I think it's going to be really exciting because we really shouldn't be sick. We shouldn't be having people that are dying young. We should be living several hundred years. And so if we can keep our bodies animated as well as we can, keeping the telomeres from splitting, breaking off. That's what basically kills us. Which methylene blue actually helps with that as well.
That really quick, what you just said.
What's that? Oh, sorry. What was it that you missed?
I don't understand what you said. Telomeres.
Oh, telomeres. Each of our, all of our DNA has telomeres. It's attached. I think it's trying to remember which chromosome or whichever. There's other people that explain it a lot better than I do.
It's the end cap of a gene. So
right,
essentially, it signals when the end of a gene is. It's like a period in the DNA, I suppose, and it shortens over time as free radicals.
Right, and once it can't replicate anymore,
it's the natural aging process, but it's manufactured on Earth right now to shorten faster because of all the environmental toxins and physiological stress in various ways. So the telomere is like the period at the end of a gene.
Interesting.
I'm really excited. There's a lot of, besides the technologies, there's a lot of research. If you look at some of Chase Hughes' videos, he talks about methylene blue and how he healed himself from frontal lobe seizures. And there's also some research. I'm trying to remember the neuroscientist that was talking about it, but he talks about how it's actually starting to grow back the telomeres, which is really exciting, using methylene blue and high doses of melatonin. But it's with a suppository, and you can actually buy those through Chase Hughes has an affiliate network thing. They're pretty expensive, which I want to try, but it's going to be a little, so it's like $100 for like 30 of them. But I think it's like 30 milligrams or more of the melatonin. But it's doing some really cool things, leaps and bounds. But I think between what we're trying to do with the government on getting our medical rights back and our health rights back and getting rid of the deep state, being able to have access to these med beds, is going to be an excellent thing. Like I said, this is just a prototype med bed because it's using different technologies that do help expedite the healing in the body, but it's not like the AI driven ones that you can actually change the frequency depending on what that person needs and really target that and hone it down so that you can truly heal, and you can actually age regress people so that they appear to be about 25 years old.
Oh shit, sign me, please sign me up.
So, Rogue, I have a quick question for you. Mm-hmm. When I was looking at your energy cell, I think is what you called it, with the resin.
Oh, the charging plate?
The charging plate? How does that differ from orgonite? Because it looks almost the same thing.
It's similar. I call this one a ganzanite charging plate because it does have this ring right here. It's just oxygen tubing, but Kesh is the one that invented the plasma GANs, and it gives off tachyon energy. And so I wrap it with a wire, but he says that it has to be a clear tube, and so I keep a clear tube with the O or the orgonite. The Wilhelm Reich said that there has to be at least tourmaline and selenite, and so I at least have those two, and then intuitively I use other things. Usually you have metal shavings. I added magnets because I remembered in the programs that we used magnetic frequencies, and so these right here are neodymium magnets. This is I destroyed a microwave. I took that one out. Since this is steel, it can take the magnetic charge, and so it's just a stainless steel cake pan. But once it's filled up, it'll be up to just a little bit above the selenite. On top of the bubble tech, I'll have another cake pan inverted upside down because it'll be sitting on 4 copper pipes that will be going down into the bubble tech. And what we could do is we could set things on here to charge. So like if you're wanting to do like some food, or you got a device you want to like take some crappy energy off of, or you want to charge a glass of tea or water, that's what this charging plate will be able to do. And so
wow, that is amazing. That's so amazing. Oh my God, I need to talk to you more. I make little organite pyramids, but I always feel that it's more. I don't make it scientific. I make it more artsy, even though I want to make it more. I found out by my father when he passed. He put it on my phone. I swear. That's what he did when he passed. He would give me messages that way.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know about it. So it's interesting. So what you're talking about is amazing, really.
That's really cool. I like that a lot of people are tapping into that energy now and getting interested in Wilhelm Reich's work. It's really awesome. I'd say just keep doing it, keep flowing with it, and using your intuition, and you'll be amazed at what you figure out on your own. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So
I wanted to say too, before we move on, that looks like a stepping stone, that charging plate. So have you ever thought about like embedding those in the ground in front of a house, or like the walkway
That's really cool.
up to a
Doing
house?
that.
I think that would be good for, balancing the energy and owning, like claiming your own ground kind of thing, and clearing the energy. Like, if you're gonna walk up to my house, you better clear your fucking energy kind of thing.
It would be probably not, like, just making one of those costs almost $300, and so they're very pricey to make. But yeah, I think maybe using like your local earth that you got, local stones, rocks, just because I think a lot of the earth is good, and using maybe concrete would be a really cool idea. But then, of course, incorporating, like, if you have GANs, if you have access to it. If not, you can actually make it very easily. And it's on the Keshe Institute. Keshe is how you spell his name. But Keshe Institute, he actually has classes where you can learn how to make it. And if you look on Facebook, you can find Facebook groups that show you how to make or the plasma GANs. So it's really, really powerful.
A way around that, Rogue, I'm wondering is, like, Orgonite has a certain field radius to it. Shungite does.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think of the word. The seeds, some of those seeds that people have. Like, I have a seed that has a 3-foot radius. So if you look at the radius, you could go, okay, so say the charging plate has a 5-foot radius. Well, then every 5 feet, put another one. You don't have to put them like, maybe not like Alyssa was saying, every step, but every so many feet, be like, oh, you've exited this field, now you're into this one's, and step on it, and by the time they get there, maybe 3 or 4 steps of those be totally cleared.
Or even just like at your front door, like
that would be cool. Almost like a mud mat. There you go. Be like, take off your shoes and put your feet on this mat.
Or be like the gate and be like, if you can cross this gate, you can come in the house.
That's so funny. I love it. Love it. Well, I know that if you wanted to learn about the bubble tech, Bill Tysing has on Facebook, there's a bubble tech group that you can join, and they show you how to make those. They can help with like bringing in prosperity. It helps if you want to create rain, just depending on what you do with the frequency. You use a heating plate, or like they use a heat lamp. I've got a chicken heating brooder that I'm going to be putting it on. And then there's a plate that you vibrate, like with the Genesis crystal. We're just combining different technologies. And then Susan Long, and the 3 of us, we're just kind of testing with each, to see how it's working. We use it to also enhance our energy work when we're doing like remote viewing or the bilocational, as I do bilocational energy work with people where I'm clearing their energy fields. She does the Holy Fire Reiki. Yeah, I did a session on you. And so, I mean, you could totally, if you wanted to talk about the session that I did with you, I do offer those for people as well. I've actually had quite a few calls this past week since people have seen some of the shows, just interested in saying, hey, what could you do for me? And so I do a little call with people and we'll chat about what their needs are. And then once, I have permission to step in, I will actually energetically bilocate to that person and remote view, and I basically step into their body and I do a scan so that I can see everything that's going on. I can remove or deactivate depending on what the technology is. I see tech, I see other technology that the different programs have put in, and also entity attachments, possessions. I've been able to take those off. Cancellations, like I can cancel soul contracts very easily. And so basically it's addressing the entity or those that have done the psychic attack or the spell, if it's a magic spell, and addressing their free will, their freedom to self-identify. But because they haven't used full disclosure in your full knowledge and understanding of right now, they have no right to continue their war games, that's exactly what it is. And so all contracts are canceled through all space-time, and I bring it through the morphogenic field. And then we throw that away, and I make an Aqua Mother Arc portal, and we throw it through that, return to sender. And I put basically a mirrored bubble shield around the person. I help them to understand that this is all about intention. You have the power to do every bit of what I just did. And so if anyone's doing a psychic attack or remote viewing on you, it's the intention that's the most important thing. Saying, I do not consent to this. Get the fuck off my property. Get out of here. You don't get to look at me. You know, if you want to look, I got a shield. You're going to see yourself. So anything you throw at me is going to be happening to you tenfold, because that's the law of karma. If what you do to me is going to happen to you. And I just put that little kicker on there. You can have it 10 times as strong, so you get a little bit of taste of your own medicine. I mean, I don't like it when I get messed with, and I don't like it when people that I've worked with or messed with, I think it's freaking rude. So I get to be a mama bear.
I really appreciate the people who are like, I don't give a fuck if you remote view me. Like, look at what you want. I have nothing to hide. But that's not the way that I feel, and that can feel extremely intrusive when you don't know what's going on. Like when you don't know what's happening yet, you're like, why do I feel like this?
Yeah.
I feel like somebody is watching me. Someone is in my space. And depending on how empathetic you are, you might be like, I am not even feeling like myself. Like, this is someone else's energy entirely. What the hell is this? And I would say that I spent a couple years like that before I really came around to understand what was actually going on. And then, you know, at that point, I could consciously shield myself against it. But at first, it was just like, damn, this is extremely uncomfortable. And so now I'm kind of more on the side, as far as ethics go, you know, there's no governing body for doing an energy read on someone or remote viewing someone without consent. But just on the basis of human decency, that feels extremely unethical to me. Unless you have substantial reason and evidence to believe that someone is causing you or somebody else harm.
Right.
And, you know, all bets off. But if it's just a normal person, and especially if it's not a public figure, I find that disgusting and deplorable to be doing consensual energy reads on them. And I won't name names right at this particular moment, but, you know, posting videos about people's auric fields and, you know, we'll just leave
that carries karma. That carries so much karma, and that's the thing that I teach people, because I'm very adept at basically helping people understand, you know, you have the right to say no according to your sovereign, you know, ability as a being, your rights to be able to be free, to be able to have your privacy. So, you know, if anybody really truly wants to learn that, I can help teach you how to basically block that and shield that and send it back to him, because karmic magic, you got every right to send that back to somebody if they're just being a dumbass and they want to come in and be like, I'm curious, I'm gonna don't you fuck with me, and don't you fuck with people that I've been teaching, because I'm gonna show them how to say no, and you're gonna get every bit of backlash you deserve for doing that. And so thank you for bringing that up, because that's dirty. Anybody that wants to go and read someone else without their consent and say that, well, I'm psychic and I know, that's bullshit. You do not have a right to look at someone else. It's unethical.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact too that it might not even be accurate, right? Because you know, I think we can reference Mama Bear because she's well established. Like, she has up a mirror shield. So if you try to read Penny without her consent, you're probably going to see yourself.
Exactly.
And depending on the time and context in which you try to read someone energetically, you might be reading someone else's energy. And this gets into the sphere of black magic, where, you know, there's like swapping things that go on. This is something that I didn't even consider. I didn't think this shit was real at all. I'm like, this is some Harry Potter fantasy shit. But and then I realized after it started happening to me, I'm like, this is absolutely real and it needs to be talked about.
Right.
Because
Yes.
if you think that you're doing an energy read on someone, you might actually be reading the energy of someone who is infiltrating their space.
Ooh.
So not only is it unethical, it may not even be accurate at all. So just don't fucking do it. Like, be a good person, don't do it. It's bullshit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was
Absolutely.
thankful that Sean taught me how, when feeling someone's energy on me, I can just disappear. He taught me a technique to where my energy just disappears and they can't find me. And so I'm like, I was so thankful for that.
I
And I
like
do
that.
it every once in a while. I'm like, even if it just feels just like maybe a slight, like, did someone just peek? I'll be like instantly going right into that mode and being like, hey, if you were just peeking, that's all you're getting. Because I
I
just
like that.
activated that disappearance mode.
I like that. It's like the Harry Potter cloak. Like, you don't see
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but real quick, Alyssa and Rogue, there's just something about what you guys are talking about. I wonder if can work in conjunction. And what that is the med bed in water. Could
I don't
that
know. Like, I think if we were to do it, you'd have to have it be very insulated, because we're actually putting live electricity through it, and that could electrocute you. And so you'd have to make sure that whatever energy fields are being used, that it's insulated so that you're protected from the water.
Yeah, but in our case, what's a little electricity?
I mean, light that bitch up.
No, what's funny is I was on an investigation and this temple right here started feeling electricity. And my wrist started feeling electricity in it. And everyone's like, I don't know why you're getting this electricity feel. And I'm like, I don't either. And in the back of my mind, I'm like going, oh man, did someone just activate me and I'm feeling them activating me? And then somebody then reminds me and goes, wasn't there like an asylum sanitarium across the street at one point of where you were? I was like, oh yeah, there was. And they go, you probably were feeling the effects of a patient over there. I was like, oh, okay. I actually honestly felt a little better about that. I was like, I didn't want to be activated during this investigation. And so I'm like, yeah, I there was actually a calming feeling of, oh, it was electrotherapy that somebody experienced some
It's just
time
somebody
ago. I
else.
experienced.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no, I like that thought though, Michael, and I've had a similar thought. Not that we necessarily want to combine electricity and water, but
Well, no,
if these methods were combined in a healing center of sorts, yeah, absolutely. Maybe as
That'd be
separate
really cool.
services. This is what I see for the future and what I've been seeing for several
think
years,
that would
like a holistic healing center that offers all of these kinds of things. And you could also apply a technology around an aquatic therapy pool, not such that electricity would be going into the water, but you could create that field around the pool so that the water would become more coherent, like creating the living water
right.
That'd be really cool.
the pool and within the body. But yeah, running currents
makes
through
sense.
water, that's a little sketchy with
That
the
makes sense, because like,
nervous system.
I bet you could rig something like that. Because like,
Yeah.
this has the electricity that comes through, but I bet if you did something like that would buffer it, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, it would be
Because I
something like
definitely
you go
wanna
do
have-
this and then you go do that, and then you go
Oh,
chill out in a
absolutely.
bed and heal. So yeah.
Heck
And
yeah.
Rogue, I just had another idea.
What's that?
You know, because everybody has different elements that they use for healing. Like And the avatar state sort of is where you can access them all. And isn't that technically what we're trying to reach?
Yeah,
So
I think so.
there's going to be 4 corners to these beds. What if you had the element of fire on one corner, element of air on a corner,
Yeah.
element of earth, element of water, and they're just influxed, and you could, I wonder if you could even watch, like, if somebody's laying there, like, say I'm like, oh, heat, is a little low, and you see an influx of heat go into the body, and it's like, oh yeah, now I'm really recharged and regenerating,
That would
and
be
the
so
body could just
interesting.
pull the elements that it needs.
Right. That would be cool. I mean, I'm totally open to like learning a lot and figuring out just more and more, just even with my own wellness center, as we're, I'd like to get a physical center. Most of it right now is just different practitioners that I work with. But yeah, that would be really cool because I want to do a float tank so bad. Now I'm like, I want to look into that stuff you're doing too because I want to get one of those big spots that you can do, like tether yourself and do like water work and everything too. So I think that would be so useful for people.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where a lot of us are too. We want to work in a network and we want to see facilities that can actually tolerate and administer the kinds of ideas that we have, but they just don't exist yet. So we have to keep talking about them. And I don't want to speak for anyone else, but there's also that whole principle of like, don't speak it until you do it kind of thing, because then somebody else will steal it. But
Yeah.
if it's never been done before, or if it hasn't been done for thousands of years, and you need a team to pull it off, we have to speak about it.
Right.
And that
Right.
comes into a little bit of a battle with the ego of like, I don't want somebody to steal this, but I don't have the funding, so I need to reach out and connect with other people. And I think that's where, that's where your heart comes into play. Like, where is your heart? Where is your intention? If this is truly an idea for the betterment of the entire world, you're not going to be in your ego about it. And whoever
Right.
can pull it off, if it's helping people, that's a good thing. But
Well, I think if we can all replicate it, that's why I'm being open about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Because if someone else wants to do this, by all means, freaking make some of it. If you want to sell it, I'm not, I did trademark Ganzanite a few years ago. Big deal. I'm never going to see royalties on that. But if someone makes Ganzanite, freaking make it. It's amazing. It feels amazing. If you have questions about how to make it, hit me up, and I would totally love to do it. Just like Bill Tysing does with his Janisa crystals, with his bubble. That's what we want to do. We want to see people making this in their homes, having it in their homes, so that everybody has this energy flowing. I mean, we got this crappy 5G towers around us. Let's fucking say, this is my middle finger right here. Let's do it. Let's everybody, make some GANs, make some organite, make Ganzanite, make whatever you're gonna do. These things, these violet rays are on Amazon for like $30 or $40. Excuse me. Bill has a guy that you can buy them through as well. They're super affordable to have. It's amazing technology. The mats are a little bit more. You can find them between $100 and $300, depending on the low end. So you can get them up as much as $1,000. On the far infrared, the near infrared lights are about $50 to $100. The prices of things are starting to come down, and so I think if you get things, one thing at a time. Like, okay, this month I can afford to get the red light therapy with near infrared. Okay, this next month I'm going to save up, and I got a couple extra $100. I'm going to get the stones so that I can, make some Ganzanite. I'm going to start making the GANs. So I'm going to look on Kesh website. I'm going to start getting like the tubing, like just do little things. So you're starting to collect those things. So when you do make it, you're like, fuck yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's do this. I mean, hell yeah. I'm totally up to talking with people and saying, what questions do you have? And what can we do to help you at least know what steps you can go to so that you can start getting this technology in your own home. You don't have to go to some other person that makes it all the time. I mean, it's great. It's going to be expensive, but it's just the products that you're getting are expensive to pull together. And so
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I'll piggyback on that Alyssa was saying is it's frustrating to me when you get all these like healing modalities that use like quantum something, and they're like, yeah, it's going to be so beneficial. And there's only one person left alive that knows how to operate this. So when they're gone, the information's gone. I'm like,
exactly,
how valuable is that? Because
not at all.
you're like, you're screwed when that person passes away. So why
It's got to
don't
be
we?
replicatable.
Yeah.
Got to be
So
replicatable.
we got to start sharing the formulas, sharing how everything works, because yeah, as people are passing on and going on with their journey, they're taking the info with them, and it's like, well, that's great for you, but what about the rest of us that are stuck now with equipment we don't know how to operate?
Yeah, if you are trying to monopolize important information, technology, techniques, you're part of the problem.
Exactly.
If
I
you're
agree
trying
with
to
that.
dictate who deserves that and keep it to yourself, you're not helping anybody but yourself. And that's the difference between a leader and a cult leader.
Or a
You know?
crook. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
being a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fuck that. Let's talk and let's help each other and create
yeah.
systems, new systems, not just
And that's what
keeping
Jill and
all of our
Susan and I are
information
working on.
hitting. Yeah.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
just want to point out that Rogue, you've been a little bit choppy throughout this episode, and
Oh,
I've
shoot.
noticed I go like this over my keyboard, and it automatically starts to put you back into normal mode, and I'm like, all right,
I love
whoever's
it.
messing with the channel, it's not gonna work.
No, it's not gonna work. I used to black out on my stuff whenever I had my show. Like a lot of times the whole house would black out. Like the lights would turn off, the computer would shut off. So I know that there has been someone, excuse me, messing with it. They don't want stuff like this out, and they know that I'm willing to teach people. I'm willing to teach people psionics. I've actually got some clients right now that I'm teaching hemisync. I'm teaching people about the Ganzanite. I want people to be able to make this stuff and be able to replicate. I want to be able to have people be able to quiet their mind and meditate to a point that it's so healing. It's so worth it. And
And
this
it's
isn't
interesting.
something to keep to myself. This is something to share with other people and say, hey, what can I do to help you so that you can be more effective for yourself, for your family? Because that's what we need. We need to do a grassroots thing, just like Alyssa's talking about, is, help people so they can help themselves rather than some guru sitting behind saying, well, I'm the best psychic in the world and I'm going to read you now and I'm holier than you and I'm a guru. And fuck that shit. That's just pull your ego out of your asshole.
Oh, I love this show.
And I guess that's another, kind of abstract little things that I've learned over the years is I would say that a red flag in this community, especially if you're a newcomer, if someone is not willing to talk to you without you paying them, that's a red flag. Like if they are not willing to even like message you or have a short dialogue with you without you paying them, question it at least. Maybe
Right.
they're really busy and maybe they're very skilled and they're just very busy, and that could be the case. But some of
I can
those
see
people,
coaching, mentoring, session work. It's like a job. You're using your energy. There's got to be an energy exchange. But yeah, I agree. If I'm doing a consult with somebody or just a conversation, someone has a question, I'm not charging for that shit. I mean, don't just bring my phone. I've had people just try to call me. I'm like, dude, I work 40 hours a week. I'm a mom. I have a family. Text me, please. Don't just call. That's fucking rude. But, at least send me a text. It might take a few days to get back, but I'll totally chat with people. I'm totally down with that. And I agree with that. I've seen people that are just like, yeah, well, you just took 15 minutes of my time, so that's going to be like whatever amount of dollars.
Mhm.
Like, what the
And
fuck?
I absolutely agree. Boundaries are imperative and healthy, and that's not what I'm talking. I'm glad that you clarified that further. But yeah, just like, a little direct message. If they are not responding to you, just in that simple, couple minutes type of interaction, they say like, well, you need to book a session to get through my gate. It's worth questioning at least and looking into a little bit further, because that feels like a monopoly on help, which is crazy to me. That's not the way that I operate.
Now, as a little surprise to LaLa, she didn't know about this, but there was a reason why I was excited too. That, and I'm not quite sure, Alyssa, if you can answer this, but I have faith. If you can, you will. If not, it's all right. But Rogue, I think you can. And LaLa I'm loving how she's looking at me like, because I know so many things, and she's like, oh my God, what is he going to bring up? But my question is, when you have something attached to you, or a dark negative energy like an incubus, succubus, that won't leave you alone no matter what you do, you even invoke universal law and it doesn't detach, what is going on? What can be done?
You
I'm
got to
curious
cancel
your
some
guys' thoughts.
contracts. There might be a contract there that it hasn't been canceled. And then I usually will invoke force. And so it's kind of like if you think of a security guard or a police officer. If they're going in and you've got somebody that's being, non-conforming, they're being a jerk, they're causing some vandalism, graffiti, or like, hey, you need to stop. I'm going to detain you now. And they're just like really fighting and they're swinging. Sometimes you got to pepper spray them. Sometimes you got to, use that little burner and pop them with the rubber bullet. Sometimes you have to take force and you have to forcefully remove them and send them through. And sometimes you have to ask for help. If you need angels, if that's what works for you, your guides, whatever it is, it's okay to ask for help. Totally do that.
I had a experience. I'm it's been going on a while, but I had a real, true, physical, not just a dream experience. And I never believed in any of that before. I mean, I believed in ghosts and all that, but I just didn't really grasp what really is around us. And that was about 3 years ago this happened. And then, I started thinking, my family just started to drop off one by one, literally one by one. And then this happens. And so I started looking into it, and I'm trying to find answers, I guess is what I'm saying. It's very interesting. I mean, I try to put myself out of my emotions, and it is interesting that there's so much more that we're never taught,
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Alyssa, the
and-
reason I was looking at you, asking you, was because I was feeling like with nothing's working, she's being targeted. And so I was interested in your perception of being targeted yourself, your take on that, and what can be done.
That's why I use force and I use karma, just because, like, what can you do if you don't have weapons in your arsenal? Then we're basically helpless. And so that's what I think of is like, what can I do that's within universal law that's not going to have a backlash on me? Like, if someone's attacking me, I have a right to defend myself, as I actually work as a security guard here in town. And there's times when you have to, take those steps and you have to escalate. You try to de-escalate where you can, but there are times when someone just doesn't want to fucking leave you alone. And you have to use force. And so is that force a type of force that's okay in that situation? If it is, you're not going to get the karmic backlash. They will, which is amazing. So, like, when you are having, like, say someone it keeps on psychically attacking you or keeps on doing whatever attack that they're doing, send it back to them. There's a technique that Vogel used. Actually, they make the Vogel crystals that if you draw in your breath and you hold that breath for a moment and you pop the breath back out, you're actually going to use that force. And that's part of what we used a lot in the programs. And so when you're putting that energy back out, you want to hold that, pop it back out as you're saying, no, like get rid of it, pop it out, using in your intention, the karmic thing is there. I do not consent. You do not have a right. We have no contracts. I did not consent to this. No. And, send it back to him and do it hard. Do it hard. Like you imagine yourself punching that person in the gut, punching them. If you got to take pepper spray, whatever it is in your mind that's going to make it real, that's going to make that intent have power behind it. And so, like, a lot of people want to use the name of Jesus Christ. If that works for you, great. If not, whatever works for you, that is the most important thing, because that's putting power behind your intention. So when you take that force and you're punching that person back, you have the right to defend yourself. So use it.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry that you've gone through what you have. That's terrible.
Thank you. It's the positive is it's made me stronger. It's made me realize that I was much stronger than I realized I was.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I'm protective of my son, and that's why I'm also trying to learn, because he's all I have left, so I have to make sure I know what the fuck's going on so I can protect us. But right now it's okay, but it still makes me nervous that I always feel like something's just hiding. But anyway.
And I'm sorry if I cut you off.
I had a couple thoughts that came up, though. LaLa, in particular, it feels like something that's kind of following your family.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would ask, do you feel like you have a good understanding of your family heritage and bloodline?
I know we're O negative. My mom and dad were O negative. My mom would always say that she felt like there was a curse over us. I know that what's the one where they're French and Spanish?
French
and
Oh,
Spanish.
what's that one?
Basque.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's one of my
that's
bloodlines too. I'm trying to think of it. You can cancel those posters.
Do you communicate with Penny? Do you know Penny Bradley?
No, I live under a rock pretty much. So
okay. Well, I would maybe reach out to her, because she's extremely knowledgeable on these things. Historically, with the bloodlines and families and cults that target specific bloodlines. But if it's something that you're noticing as a pattern in your family, that's something that I would question. Okay. Because I've felt that as well, and it's something that I'm trying to learn about more too. Okay. I would also, my next question would be, have you, not that they can't get if somebody wants your DNA, they're going to get it. Mm-hmm. But have you ever voluntarily sent a DNA sample into like Ancestry or genealogy? Have you ever done that?
No, because it freaked me out, but my mom did, and then she died like a year later. Well, my dad died, and then a couple months later, my mom, and then a year and a half, my boyfriend, and then a year, my friend. So
there's a quantum entanglement that happens. If anyone has a tissue, blood, DNA sample of you, if it's a nefarious lab, there's quantum entanglement with your own body. And that's where it would go into exactly what Amaria is saying. You have to consciously cancel that contract and essentially visualize that sample as inert, because it is still connected to you. And so unless you go in and break the psychic cord, you will be subconsciously pulled in whatever direction they are doing God knows what with that sample.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the last thought that came to mind, this is something that I kind of regret not doing more in the past. And it's a big part of why I think it's easy for some people to disregard our community as being paranoid. But targeted individuals. There are all kinds of corporations and gang stalkers that can go in and bug your car, put cameras in your house. So utilizing the technology or services required to figure out if anyone is physically on a 3D level watching you would be another
I had
thing.
2 vehicles destroyed, so I can definitely tell you that gang stalking is real. And so, I mean, that stopped since, 2021, but it's very real.
Yeah.
I had that happen. I didn't know it was gang stalking actually, but it happened to my phone, my son's phone, and my boyfriend's phone, my mom's phone, and it was scary because after I figured out what was going on, I thought they were just hackers. I mean, they played with me. It terrified me. If someone tried to text, like if I went to Verizon, explain what was going on, the guy tried to help me, they would block his messages. I didn't know how it was just very scary. If I couldn't call 911, they would block that. It was just, so I went to a grocery store, I threw all the phones and tablets away. I went to a totally new, not Verizon, but another place. I didn't know what else to do, but I thought it was just hackers being assholes, really.
And Alyssa, I just wanted to point out, I think I interrupted you, so I apologize earlier.
It's your show, dude. It's all good.
No, I try not to do that as much as possible, so.
Sometimes there's a delay with the audio too. I don't take it personally.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
But just to put a cap on what LaLa said, though, I would reach out to Penny. I would look into your bloodlines, cancel your contracts, and physically look for devices. Because it's sadistic. Even if it's just a hacker, it's really psychologically sadistic and gross to think that there are people that even spend their time like that. It's like, do you really not have anything better to do than fucking spy on me and try to sabotage my life? But to each their own. I guess they have something that they're still trying to work out if they're behaving that way. But those are the things that come to mind and reflects what I've felt in my own life that way.
Excellent points.
Well, and also we have to look at like deep state politicians, for example. They're not going to sit there and go, oh, this person has this information. Let's, get into their phones and let's do all this and have it there. They're going to go to somebody else and say, who do you know? And they're going to say, oh, we have this hacker over here who's in our payroll, and go, okay, activate them. Go to this person. So, yeah, it will be a hacker, but they don't know what they're doing, the hackers. They just know they've been paid to do this job, and the information goes to somebody else. So that's where the disconnect is. And I think there are some hackers, though, that if they knew, they'd probably do it more and be like, give me more. And there are other hackers that are like, dude, I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't sign up for that. That's not cool. And turn into white hats, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. I mean, I think sometimes they do know what they're doing, and sometimes they don't. And maybe the subconscious MK Ultra handled gang stalkers are potentially even more dangerous because it's like a robot and they have no emotion attached to it, or they maybe have even been lied to. They're like, hey, this person needs to be spied on because they are a pedophile, or God knows what, or they're a hooker. Like, who gives a shit? This is a low class person. That's another thing in the gang stalking community, is that sometimes these people will be hired and incentivized to do a job under the false pretenses that their target is a bad person. And then it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you have this good person, very psychically sensitive person, perhaps, that is constantly being watched all the time now. So they start feeling stressed, and that affects their behavior. And they might start acting out, or, you know, fill in the blank. It changes your behavior being watched. I mean, that's a very fundamental concept in physics, that when there is an observer, it changes the behavior of matter. So it's far more complex on the level of humans watching other humans, or, you know, beings watching other beings. But, you know, sometimes these people know what they're doing, sometimes they don't. And it's just a form of outsourcing grunt work. Because you're right, like the upper echelon, top of the pyramid elite, they're not 24/7 watching somebody's phone. That's how the gang stalking chain works. They will hire somebody else to do it. And sometimes it's under false pretenses. So it just becomes really messy. And that's why we have this huge web to untangle, and why it is absolutely fundamentally imperative that we do it together. Like, none of this can be handled in isolation.
Right.
Right. And Linda brought up an interesting question, and I feel like the technology is beyond its capabilities, but she was mentioning there being a handheld device that can get feedback on listening devices or bugs, so that you could run through the house to see. And I feel like, and Rogue, you might agree with me on this, is in the programs, our stuff isn't going to be shown up by this box that's detecting bugs, because ours aren't on that type of wavelength. They're
It
more
might be some
internal.
of the older technologies. Excuse me. Some of the newer technologies, the way I understand it, is more nano and smaller than nanotech. So those, I think, might be harder to detect. But I think the ones that were like what LaLa and I were talking about earlier, because we've got some implants that are about the size of a rice grain. Those might be a little different. But that's a really good question. I'm wondering how differently some of those technologies would be. I'm just trying to recall the whistleblower that was talking. I saw recently, it was a 4-hour presentation that was done, and he was talking about like the technology, the excuse me, what he's been doing with RFK to be able to get our sovereignty back with our own, you know, health and medical treatments, if we want to have a shot or not, or if we want to have organic food, or, you know, hell forbid Von Satan's crap. I don't want that in my body. But, you know, we have a right to be able to be autonomous on what we, you know, to have choices, because we're sovereign beings. And so that would be interesting to kind of look back at his talk to see how detectable some of this stuff is, because it's such a nano, like micro, you have to see some of these things with a microscope. I mean, they're self-replicating. It's kind of creepy shit.
Right.
But, you know, how detectable is it? That's a really good question. You know, is it? I don't have that answer, but that's a really excellent question.
And
I mean, if you think about smart dust, like literally fucking dust, like how small is that? That's crazy. But people think that's like conspiracy theory bullshit. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm
I mean,
curious.
go get a soda and put a magnet on it and see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
What comes up.
Yeah. So listen, Rogue, I'm wondering, because I've had moments where I know I was tasked for a mission, because I'll have like a bump on my ear that wasn't there before, and I'll just keep rubbing and rubbing it to the point that it like disappears. And so I'm wondering, did I break the implant, or did I just help it dissolve and it's now in the system somewhere?
I mean, it's a good question, where we've got, like Alyssa saying, like that smart dust, the graphene, the self-replicating computerized stuff. I mean, I really don't have an answer to that question, but like it would make sense in just how those things can come together, and then, you know, if they come together that way, then they've got to be able to go apart as well.
They can move. Was it Whitley Strieber? He's got video of him at the doctor's and they were trying to get an implant out of his ear, and you could see this thing moving so that the doctor couldn't get it. So they're intelligent, whatever, whatever it is. So maybe it just knew you knew and it decided to go somewhere else.
Well, that's just it. It doesn't appear anywhere else. It's like I don't feel it anywhere else. And so that's why I'm wondering if
I wonder if it would go deeper in your body. Like could be a possibility. If it's subcutaneous or close enough for you to be able to palpate, then I'm wondering if it's wanting to continue to be there, if it would go deeper into the tissue. I mean, that's a possibility. I could see that would be plausible. But then again, it's like, what can we do with our magnetic fields, with our intention, with our own psionics abilities to control those? I mean, we've got like Cheryl Lee Arbogast. She's an amazing nurse that's been working with frontline doctors on detoxifying from the specific shot that people have been getting, unfortunately. And there's other shots that have technology in them that you can detoxify these things. We're being sprayed in the sky with different types of graphene. N-acetylcysteine is one of those chelators. High levels of vitamin C. You could go to one of those, what is it? It's like a bar, where they call it a bar basically, but you get an IV and do chelation, like the Myers cocktail, or you can do just the high levels of vitamin C. I think it's like 30,000 milligrams. You can also do chlorella, spirulina, zeolites, help to get rid of that technology. And so, but you have to be detoxing constantly because we're being bombarded in our air, in our food, in our medicine. Everything around us is being bombarded by this crap. Right. And so we've got to be constantly vigilant on detoxing to get rid of that. I've been drinking plenty of liquids.
Is it to make us, some people think that we're here to kind of be slaves and they also absorb our energy. Do they want to keep us down? One, to get money for the medications we get, but also do they want our energy? I mean, what's the point of doing this,
Well, if you think of all the technology that we have to heal, wouldn't somebody be more worth to you'd be worth more to the medical community if you're sick all the time, because you're going to be a paycheck. You're going to be getting that pill every month. But if you go and get healed by a med bed, well, that's one shot right there and you're done. And all you got to do is, be taking care of your mind, body, spirit, eating right, exercising, getting enough sunshine, hydrating your body enough. Most people don't realize we need almost a gallon of water a day, most of us, because of our body mass. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're hydrating enough and keeping your kidneys nice and clean and not putting a bunch of toxins and artificial flavors and colorants in the body, you're going to be less likely to get sick. Or like the SB40, which is being put into the different shots, which most of us, I was fully vaccinated up till my 20s when I stopped. And so I've had that in the shots. They cause cancer, and that's actually scientifically proven. The gentleman that was doing the show, which I could give you the information on it might later if you wanted to add that for the listeners, those that want to research into it. Very toxic substance. It comes from the monkeys that they were doing the research on. It's disgusting. It's a bioweapon, and it's been in shots for well over 40 years. I mean, I just turned 48 in July, and just to think with how many inoculations I've had over my life, and antibiotics, which destroy the gut biome. You want to keep your gut flora healthy. You want to take probiotics, prebiotics. Prebiotics are things like sauerkraut. You've got your yogurt with the different flora in them, kombucha, kefir, different things like that. And then you can get the little probiotic pills that you can take. Just taking care of that, because serotonin is made in your gut, the COX-1 and 2 receptors. If you block those with things like Tylenol, ibuprofen, other non-steroidal anti-inflammatories that block that stuff, it might take your pain away for a little while, but what's happening is it's destroying those receptors. So you can't make proteoglycan, which is the building block to your sinew, to your cartilage. And so it's a no wonder that a lot of orthopedics will say, well, once your cartilage breaks down, we can't fix it. If you stop taking that shit and you start taking bone broth and you eat cartilage and you eat things that you should, you can actually regrow it. I had a torn meniscus that I healed without surgery. The COX, I can't remember which one it is, the COX 1 or 2, but the other one you make serotonin. You also can make glutathione in the gut. The gut has its own brain. It's very smart. So we've got the mind, the heart, and the gut brain, that if we are destroying those things, it's a no wonder that we've got cancers, we have diseases, we have, obesity problems. I was over 220 pounds when I had my kids. I'm now down to about 111 pounds.
Wow.
I'm very lean muscle. It's the way that I've changed my diet. I'm no longer diabetic. I no longer have thyroid disease. I still have some Addison's, but it's a lot of it with, okay, what's stressing me out? Because if you're in that stress thing, fight, flight, or what is it, the fight or flight, or the freeze, or friend or foe, however it goes. There's different people that have called it. Anyway, it causes your thyroid to downregulate and your adrenals to upregulate. And so you're getting more of those stress hormones that's going to cause you to also have problems with your gut. And so you're going to have a harder time making serotonin and digesting your food. You're going to be in that state of stress all the time. So it's going to make you sick. Right. So it's thinking, what am I putting in my body? If I have stress around me, what can I do to take personal time so that I can be able to decompress? It's so important to be able to do.
And I hate to interrupt, but we are actually an hour and 41 minutes in, and I was like, looked at the clock, and I was like, wow, oh my God.
Let's make a part two. Make a part two next time with all of us.
We'll definitely have to get you all back on.
Yeah, that flew by. Did we have an agenda? Like, did anyone have a specific topic they wanted to cover, or just free flow?
No,
I did. I got it. I got it. Okay. So
I didn't know what to expect, but this was lovely. Like, I love the organic, just off the cuff conversations. I felt nervous, but there was no reason to feel that way, obviously.
No, you guys are all fabulous. It's been an honor being able to talk with you guys, pick each other's brains. And I think that's so important in this community, is what can we learn from each other and how can we grow from that so that we can be healthier, we can integrate our traumas and, just be a healthier community.
And Alyssa, I just would like to point out what you said. LaLa and Rogue can tell you that is exactly how all my episodes are. I don't bring agendas. It drives some people nuts because they're like, what are we talking about tonight? I'm like, I don't know. It's whatever you want to talk about. They're like, what? How does your show work? It just does.
You can kind of suss out who is able to handle that. And, calling back to my presentation, I had a script. I needed that. But, especially if someone is a public figure over time and they are only able to have a scripted conversation, or they have a set agenda for every show, another thing to think about, because there's a level of inauthenticity to that. Like, are you able to just be yourself?
Right. Yeah.
So welcome to the family, Alyssa. And
thank you.
As you can see from Rogue and LaLa, if you ever want to come on, just let me know and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure I'm a little more prepared next time. Wednesdays are a little weird for me. Wednesday is my Watsu day. So I spent about 2 hours in the pool, and then I did a table massage before that. And I'm always like a little, it's awesome. It's great. But I kind of I tend to just be very introverted in my own space after that. And so that was really interesting for me to engage a group dialogue on a Wednesday. I was also born on Wednesday. Wednesday's child is full of woe. I do relate with that. So I'm contemplative after my sessions a lot of the time, but it's good to use that creative space to engage with other people. So thank you for facilitating this conversation.
You're welcome. And I know you said you do dance, so I got to ask, with the Wednesday theme, do you do the Wednesday dance?
I could learn it. I definitely have a little bit of a goth side. I was very like punk, emo, goth teenager,
Same.
reading reptile books in the hallway, eating lunch in the bathroom, which is totally unsanitary. Don't recommend it. But I just could not deal with the psychic energy of the lunchroom, and I didn't understand that when I was younger. That's also kind of like another SSP, TI, MK Ultra indicator potentially. If you get extremely overwhelmed by being in a public space, you might have psychic gifts to look into. You know, the stronger antennas, the sensitive antennas tend to get overwhelmed, and then it can compound on this issue of like, oh, you're a weirdo. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just extremely sensitive, and that is needed. It's needed and necessary here on Earth right now.
Yeah.
So own it. Take your space and own it. Learn how to handle it.
I have a friend that put up a banner that said, "These weirdos are my tribe," and I'm like, "That's my show." Like, I bring the weirdos that are my tribe to you all. So
I love it.
Oh, and Linda says, definitely sounds like Alyssa is a strong empath.
Yeah,
So see, you got fans coming.
it's true. It's true.
Beautiful
You can bleed your energy into other people though, and so you have to take ownership of that. I'm gonna plug and shout out to Matthew Mornian again right now too. I love how he says, I completely 100% take ownership of any psychic attacks that are coming upon me, because it is a soul agreement that you make before you come here. If you're really strong intuitively, psychically, empathetically, there's a reason that you came here to demonstrate that gift. And it might not make any sense to you at all until you have a little bit more time to process it and remember it. But take ownership for it. You're not a victim. It can feel really gross and intrusive and confusing at first, but take it as a compliment if you can. Try to reverse it and take it as a compliment in like, wow, I'm so strong that these people feel the need to pay this much attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
He does really awesome sessions, by the way. Anybody that wants to do him, I highly recommend Matthew. He's amazing.
Yeah, and read his book, Remember Your Mission, rather.
Ooh, you need to get that book.
Yeah, we have the book, and he's been on my show a couple of times, and so when you mentioned him, Alyssa, I was like, ooh, maybe on part 2 we should bring Matthew into the mix.
Ooh, that would be so good.
So
Heck
down.
Yeah. I'm down.
All right. Well, we are going to call it now because we're getting close to that 2-hour marks, and I know like LaLa it's getting way late for her being on the East Coast.
Pizza just got here, so I'm ready.
Oh, well, then it's dinner time, so definitely don't want to interfere with that. But thank you all for coming on, and I do hope to do a part 2. It may end up being in 2025, so don't hold that against me. Or it could be next month. I don't know. I have to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, no worries. It's all good. Let it flow.
Yep.
You know, I really think they ought to remake that song "Let It Go" to "Let It Flow."
We could do that. We could do that. I also have to write a children's book called The Red-Headed Honeypot with Eric Hecker too. So, I got a couple projects for 2025.
Man, someone's making us all look like we're like slow to the game. All right. Well, I'm going to send us out. So thank you all again. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. And I am going to take a moment. I normally don't do this, but I don't know. What the hey? Go with the flow. LaLa, I am so grateful for your support. You've been on all my shows, and you still come back, and you are so supportive and there for me. I so appreciate it. And Rogue, you have helped open my eyes to stuff that's going on. And a lot of what you've told me has been confirmed through other people. And so I'm like, now I have an idea of where I'm going. So I feel so blessed for that.
Mhm. It's an
And
honor.
yes, and Alyssa, I just got to say thank you for trusting me to come on to the show. And I am so grateful for all that you bring. And I am truly grateful to learn now about how there's aquatic therapies out there, like massage aquatics. And I'm like, so going to look into this.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, I'll share some resources with you. That's really sweet, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, I say let's call it a night. Good night, everyone.
Night.